welcome. Welcome to my review for the season finale of Season 1 of Ash vs. Evil Dead. This is for Episode 10, The Dark One.
Why have you disturbed us?
So a spoiler warning out there to those of you who have not watched the show, and you do not watch Ash vs. Evil Dead. I do not want to spoil it for you, so turn away now unless you want to be spoiled. Basically, I can post this video before the show actually airs because I'm a hardcore Evil Dead and Bruce Campbell fan. After the Halloween premiere of The Evil Dead, I realized that my cable provider, and I'm not exactly sure who made the decision to do this, whether it was my cable provider or if it was Starz themselves, but my cable provider and Starz On Demand posts Ash vs. Evil Dead before the Saturday 8 o'clock p.m. premiere time. So I, again, am very hardcore, much of a fan, and I found that in the second episode, I realized that the episode was posted before the actual 8 o'clock viewing time, and I've watched the entire season this way, so that's how I'm able to do it. And I apologize that I do not have my backdrop. I waited the entire day. It is on its way from FedEx, but unfortunately it did not arrive in time. So the next time I post an Ash vs. Evil Dead video, I will have my Ash vs. Evil Dead backdrop for you. So on to the episode. It was great. I put aside some one-liners that were my favorite. These are all said by Ash Williams. When Ruby says at the beginning of the episode that she wrote the whole book, the Necronomicon, he says, "You wrote it? You mean like the whole thing?" That was so great. That was Evil Dead Ash Williams writing magic. That's the magic that I'm talking about in my prior video, that the show has the same magic that the 3 movies had. The show carries that magic. One-liners, I think they were just great. The second one I wrote down is Ash is in the basement and he needs Pablo, and he says, "That lady has my book and my Pablo." I like that. Thought that was great. He said, "my Pablo." So it really shows you how much Ash has developed in regards to his feelings for Kelly and Pablo over this season, which I think it's great. Ash says, "shit on a biscuit." That's a great one-liner. And as Ash is looking for Pablo, he's in the basement and he says, "Don't worry, Pedro, I'm coming for you." Pablo, I meant Pablo. That was great. Great one-liners. Okay, so this episode was pretty big. So 2 things are almost happening at once. The show opens, and Ruby again admits to Bruce that she wrote the Necronomicon, and Amanda bursts into the cabin, and all hell breaks loose. Lots of gore. It was a good, great, gory opening. And basically, long story short, Ash kills Amanda, and Ruby and Pablo disappear into the basement. Kelly and Heather, who, remember, is the little hiker blonde girl that Pablo had an interest in, those 2 girls and Ash are the only ones left inside the cabin. Ruby and Pablo are in the basement, and Amanda is definitely dead. Definitely dead. Which that sucks, because I really liked Amanda as a Deadite anyway. I loved her as a Deadite, much better than I did as the detective. I'm sorry, I'm reading everything from my notes. I take notes. So Ash tells Kelly and the other girl, that's funny, he doesn't even remember her name, to stay put. But the Evil Dead basically forces Ash into the basement. Kelly was trying to persuade him that they should all 3 go together to go rescue Pablo. He was reluctantly agreeing, and the Evil Dead separated them, pushed Ash into the basement, and kept Kelly and Heather locked upstairs. Now that's where the story separates. We get 2 stories at this point. We get what happens with Kelly and Heather, and then we get what happens with Ash and Pablo and Ruby. So let me go on ahead and tell you what happens with Kelly and Heather. While Ash is locked in the bottom, needless to say, Heather is slaughtered by the evil dead. Cockroaches like come out of her pants at one point and she's freaking out. I mean, that was a great scene. I even screamed when all the roaches started coming out because who isn't afraid of roaches crawling all over you? That was a great little scene. Anyway, the evil dead forces Kelly out of the cabin and leaves Heather alone with the evil dead. And this really pisses Kelly off because Kelly tries to get back into the cabin to help save Heather. And at one point, the cabin opens its door and it vomits blood and it vomits body parts of Heather at Kelly. It was a great, hilarious scene, especially if you love The Evil Dead. And the whole thing basically just pissed Kelly off. I mean, the scene with her where she looks at the cabin and she says, to it, it's just you and me now. I mean, it freaking gave me goosebumps of how Kelly really is a badass, and especially in this episode. I mean, Kelly has always been a strong character in this season, but at the end of this episode, you can see how the whole season she has truly evolved into a kick-ass woman. So that's my thought on Kelly. So Kelly basically gives a big fuck you to the cabin since it won't let her in to save Ash now at this point. So she sets it on fire. And it's awesome. We get some cool little homages to the Evil Dead remake. Kelly is her blood-soaked shirt in the rain when she's staring at the cabin after she's lit it on fire. And little Heather has nails thrown into her face from the nails from the wood of the wall. So the nails are sticking out of her face. And if you've seen the remake of The Evil Dead, that happens to one of the girls in there. So it was a great homage to the Evil Dead remake in those scenes. So at one point, the little, which I'll talk about, I don't want to spoil it, but we see little demon kids with Ash, but Kelly starts making her way down into the basement because after she set the cabin on fire, the cabin opens its door to let her in. So she goes down into the basement where she is confronted by lots of little demon children that are multiplying like freaking gremlins. It was pretty damn funny, I gotta say. So that's where we end with Kelly. Now, when Ash and Kelly are separated, remember, he falls into the basement and Kelly and Heather are kept upstairs. When Ash falls into the basement, he falls into a little hallucination, a little vision, if you will. And basically, it's Ruby, and she offers Ash a chance to leave the cabin and just forget the whole Necronomicon thing. She tells Ash that she wants to be basically the ruler of all of the little demons, and Ash is the only person standing in her way. So she asks him, what's it going to take for him to go away? And I love this too, because we get a little insight on what it would take to make Ash happy. But Ash tells her that he wants a 20-ounce steak dinner every night with a little pat of butter, cable TV with premium channels. And I love it that we get a little insight into Ash's head and what would make him happy and what he considers his taste of heaven, so to speak. So she tells him, well, I'll give you that, and I'll give you Jacksonville. I'll send you there if you just forget about the book and the cabin and just go away. And ultimately, he tells her no. So he is thrown out of the vision and he's back in the basement. And he comes across, while he's searching the basement, he comes across the guy from Evil Dead Part 2. I wish I could remember his name now, but he was the boyfriend to the pretty blonde girl. He wore the overalls, and I think he was a little hillbilly-ish. But he was pulled into the basement, and we see his skeleton down there, and Ash has a little flashback to the Evil Dead Part 2 of when the guy is pulled into the basement. So I love that little flash of the Evil Dead Part 2 in this season finale. Nice tribute there. So Ruby is basically in a room, which I don't understand it, but the basement has basically turned into this massive catacombs of endless possibilities. And behind one of these little endless possibilities is Ruby and Pablo. And Pablo is basically being forced to vomit up blood. And Ruby takes the blood with, oh my God, I can't remember the name of the knife right now. I've been up all night with my little ones. So she's taken that knife that will kill all the evil dead, and she's using it to dip it in blood and to write a new page to insert into the Necronomicon book. Which it's actually kind of a really gross, great scene. She also forces Pablo to vomit up this little demon baby in this cocoon. That was a great little gross scene. I mean, this entire episode was just a big tribute to gore. And it was really great. I have to say, it was a great tribute, and this fan was very happy with it. So Ruby sends the little demon child into the house, and this is one of the little demon kids that we see with Kelly later on. It's just one little kid, but like I said, this little kid has multiplied as if you've thrown water on a little gremlin. It's everywhere now. Kelly confronts at least two of them, and then you see one of them running away from her behind her back that she can't see. Only you as the viewer can. So these little demon children have multiplied, and she sends the little demon child into the house. It crawls into the house, and Ash is outside, and he's freaking out because he sees this little demon child, and he's psyching himself up to go in there and to confront Ruby. And it's a really funny scene, too, where he's psyching himself up to, tell her, you get out of here, bitch. You're the one who screwed up the world, not me. Screw you and the horse you rode in on. And it was a great little scene of how he tried to psych himself up. Anyway, the little demon child walks up behind him. He turns around. He realizes that that's the little demon child that Ruby conjured. And for a split second, he has a problem killing this little demon kid because, you say what you will about Ash, but he would never kill a child. And that's what this demon appears to be, is a little child. So he doesn't want to do it at first, but then the little demon kid just, in a hilarious scene, attacks Ash. Anyway, Ash puts his shotgun, basically his boomstick, in the kid's mouth and blows him apart. It's awesome and it's hilarious. So a good little one-liner there, too, about Ash telling the kid how his mouth needs to be washed out and Ash is the one to do it. And then he blows the kid apart. I mean, that was really great. So Ash busts into the room, confronts Ruby and Pablo, which is now evil Pablo. Ruby uses Pablo to try to beat up Ash. Doesn't really work. Ash kind of gets the upper hand. Good Pablo begs Ash to kill him. But then the chainsaw stops working because Ash didn't fill it up with gas like Pablo always reminded him to do. Pablo, you beautiful idiot. Bruce Campbell is awesome in this episode. And this whole thing, him as Ash Williams is fantastic. So they get into a big fight again, even though Ash's chainsaw hand doesn't work. They still get into a big fight, but Kelly comes in and saves them. So this is where Kelly and Ash now, their stories intersect again. So Pablo is killing Kelly, basically, while Ruby is trying to give the deal to Ash again to forget about the cabin and the Necronomicon and to go away. And he tells her, well, look, my life isn't the only one that's been destroyed by this. Kelly and Pablo's lives have been destroyed as well, so I want them to come with me to Jacksonville. And she says, fine, take them with you. And he says, and $10,000 in cash. And she looks at him and she's like, I'm not a bank. It's funny. So he takes gas money rather than the $10,000. But he keeps her at bay with the knife that kills the evil dead. And he tells her that he's going to keep that knife just as insurance to make sure that she behaves herself. And by this time, evil Pablo is gone. Good Pablo has kind of returned, and he's begging Ash not to do this because the evil that he's going to let out is bad. And even Kelly is telling Ash, I wouldn't do this if I were you. But Ash is like, screw this. I want to be free, and I want to go home to Jackson. I want to go to Jacksonville, not home. It's not his home. So him and Ruby have their agreement, and the show ends with Pablo, Kelly, and Ash in Ash's car with his little home trailing behind him, and they're driving to Jacksonville. And he's telling them how, they're going to stop and get some burgers because they need road trip food. And then an emergency broadcast comes on the radio about these sudden massive sinkholes that are appearing all over the place. And it's the emergency thing is telling people to get into their homes. And Kelly is kind of telling Ash that doesn't sound good. And he flips off the radio and he just tells her basically he doesn't care. And he puts in music and drives off towards Jacksonville. And the scene ends with the street that they're driving on. They're driving away, and on the road that they've already driven over, it collapses and falls. It makes this big, massive sinkhole, like reported into the emergency broadcast. Now, obviously, Ash and his companions do not fall in. He has already driven past it. It just happens behind him after he's driven on the road to give us an ominous feel for season 2. So excited for season 2. There's no word yet on when it's going to be released, but let me tell you something, guys. If you love The Evil Dead, you are going to love the season finale. If you love The Evil Dead, you are going to love this entire season. Again, this show was just not some unknown guy who wanted to turn a really great trilogy into a crappy show just for the sake of trying to gain some publicity. These are the real people from, the original movies, and I love this show. I think the season finale, I would definitely give it a 10 out of 10. I give Bruce Campbell a 10 out of 10. And I would love to know what you guys think in the comments below. What do you think about this season of The Evil Dead? And what do you think about the season finale? So let me know what you think in the comments below, guys. Thank you very much for watching my video. Again, this was a great season finale, a great season. I am definitely impressed and pleased with it. Bravo to you writers and camera crews and actors and actresses and everybody who came together to collaborate on this show. This was a fantastic show. Applause to all of you. Excited for season 2. Excited. Guys, if you would like to support the channel, please hit the like button. Even if you're a Deadite and you hate Ash Williams, hit the like button. Trust me, every time you hit the like button, a Deadite gets to slap Ash. Thank you again for looking at my review. If you would like to see more, click the subscribe button or just come back here later and just look and see what I've posted. Thank you very much again for watching, and I can't wait again for season 2 of Ash versus Evil Dead. Score! Great first season, people. Great first season.